Those of you who are joining us from all over the world and paying attention to our press briefing here at the Tobago Emergency Operations Center at Fairfield Complex in Scarborough. We can smile a lot more this afternoon than a few hours ago, and that's because we have gone through the hurricane, and I think we fared extremely well. And so I wish to start by thanking God for answering our prayers. Thank all of you for your prayers, your well wishes, and the support generally. And I think it has brought us through to this point. Director Stewart and myself, we are going to go through with you some details insofar as updates, some details insofar as the incidents across the island, and of course I will end by sharing with you what steps we are going to take as an island for the rest of today and into tomorrow. So I will start with Director Stewart, who will speak to the kinds of incidents we have treating with at the moment and the direction our operations here at the Emergency Operations Center will take. So over to you, Director Stewart.
Good afternoon all of Tobago, good afternoon all of Trinidad and Tobago, and to the wider public wherever you may be. Rightly said, we are a smiling bunch based on how our face looked yesterday while doing these press briefings. Certainly, what can one point to that may be responsible for all of that is because BERYL may not have been harsh to us as we were expecting it to be, but saying so, we recognize it is still early. Throughout the day, during our activation, we saw a number which is growing steadily at 102 reports so far. We expect those reports to probably increase by about 50% if we were to keep abreast of what normally happens in these situations. In terms of the widespread damages, we would have seen 24 villages across the island being impacted. The eastern end of the island seemed to be that area of received the brunt of the weather in terms of the severity of the incidents, starting as early just after midnight and early this morning. The numbers continue to grow. We know that at 11 a.m. Hurricane BERYL was centered and located some 65 kilometers east of Grenada. And that's the type of good news that we want to share, that we think that it is all behind us now. But while we had anticipated a rainfall to the extent of 150 millimeters, we have not realized that level of rainfall as yet. Is there going to be that amount of rainfall? We feel no. The hazards that impacted us, fallen trees, taking the climb in terms of the numbers of fallen trees, a wide number of fallen trees. We had no fatalities, no injuries. We had one structural damage that was really in terms of road blockages. We saw 7 road blockages, inclusive of that which took place in Bloody Bay, Castara, Arnosville, and a few other areas. Also, we recognize that there were, just early this morning, we saw power outages, and those are power outages in 15 areas, inclusive of Lescotto, Frenchfield, Castara, Mount St. George. Charlottesville was one of the first areas that we were hit in an area called Campbellton. And however, based on our meeting today, which was our post meeting when we met the TNTech reps, so provide us with the information that they are actively trying to do restoration. There may be pockets still in some areas that would have lost electricity, but generally in every village I think there is a full restoration, and what we have is just pockets within those areas that may be affected at this time. Emergency shelters. We saw the activation, even though we would have asked for all the shelters to be open. But again, based on the impact and the response, we saw only 16 shelters had to be activated. We had just about a total of 145 persons that were considered to be shelterees. Out of that, 3 or 4 families we will have to consider moving them to other places so that we can return those buildings to normalcy as quickly as possible. And that being said, we expect that shelters will be closed based on the discussions and the executive decision made by the chief. So we have 5. We have 5 families that we have now learned that we have to really take care of, and that will be done in a particular way where we'll take care of those families going forward. So we are very pleased. I wanted to especially thank those stakeholders, our collaborators, members of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I want to thank, this message needs to be extended to straight up the line in terms of the ODPM who would have engineered the whole aspect of allowing us to pre-position these feet or foot on the ground or boots on the ground, so to speak. We have seen that technique work quite well for us today, where we are able to respond immediately as soon as we got the go clear. Those teams are still outside in the field doing work. We have some roofs that needs to be repaired, and we have some trees that needs to be cut up cleanly, and make the roadway as clear as possible. DIQUD, we want to thank them very much for their work, ensuring that our thoroughfares, based on the strategy that we would have employed to pre-position equipment in a particular manner, that was done, and we saw it working well for us in the response. The other utilities did their work well as well. The TSTT, Digicel, we want to thank those persons who participated. Health, especially the TRHA, we cannot thank them enough. Not only did they provide or set themselves their emergency operations center, they stood it up, and also they make sure, Chief, that their kitchen was stood up for us as well. So they were able to feed us throughout the period, and we really thank them for that very much. And how can I forget the Chief Administrator and her team? They came through and helped us with the procurement process, which went quite well, and we know definitely that it will continue to be so where procurement is concerned. We are not yet out of the woods. As I said, we expect additional reports to be made. I just want to alert you members of the public. Some of you would have been shelterees, and therefore the shelters will be closed by 5 o'clock, Chief, and it will give persons a chance to go back to their premises and examine it to see whether or not those do your assessment to see whether or not your premises have been disrupted in any way. However, if that is the case, we will advise almost immediately that you can make your reports through 211. Calling 211 is like calling TEMA. Make it very simple. And our teams are still standing by based on the level of the activation at this stage. We are at an orange level. It means that we expect hazards. It's still a hazard situation, and therefore we will be able to respond to any. The emergency operations center, though downgraded, will still be in effect to answer your calls and to respond to whatever incident that may occur. Ensure that you inspect your premises thoroughly and do the necessaries. I know definitely that there will be some concerns, Chief, about schools. There will be some concerns about work tomorrow. I will allow you to deal with that part, and I think I could rest here until further notice. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Director Stewart. Some additional bits of information insofar as updates. Make sure the mic isn't falling. Sorry about that. So we open shelters, and just so that you are aware, 145 individuals sought shelter during the hurricane, and those 145 persons that sought shelter at 16 of our shelters. So only 16 of our open shelters were really occupied. 145 people sought shelter. Of the 145 people, we are currently treating with 5 families that have unique circumstances and that require that beyond the initial shelter, that we provide lodging for them during the course of the night over the next 72 hours and perhaps beyond, based on the state of their homes. Secondly, we want to point out that landslides are still very much possible. The earth is very well saturated, and so areas so prone, even in the hours post the hurricane, we can in fact have movement of the earth and of homes. Pay attention to areas where houses are waterlogged. For example, where there is the absence of guttering and water might have seeped constantly into the foundation, there's a possibility that some of those homes can now be pushed off mountain sides. So pay attention to that. You heard that we have 102 reports and counting. Please bear in mind that the majority of those reports are either roof related or fallen tree related. We have to date at least 11 fallen trees on houses based on reports that we have, and generally we have 30 roof related reports. TRHA, during this hurricane up until 2 p.m. this afternoon, Scarborough General Hospital accident and emergency only saw 3 individuals, only 3, and the Roxborough Hospital accident and emergency only saw 2 individuals. Currently at Scarborough General Hospital, we have 66 patients resident in the hospital, and at Roxborough we have 3. Please note that both Roxborough, Scarborough hospitals, that they return to regular service as of tomorrow. More than that, our health centers also return to regular service tomorrow. Where Tiantec is concerned, Tiantec received beyond the 15 we received here at Tima, but Tiantec in total received 34 reports of outages. Between Darrell Spring to Lansome, there was a blackout in that entire area. So far, restoration has happened up until Highlands Road, and they're working on restoring the rest of that pathway leading up to Lansome. So if you are between Highlands Road and Lansome and you're without electricity still, please note that Tiantec is actively working on restoring your electricity. From Richmond to Hermitage on the east, also without electricity, and that work is continuing. So of course, if you're in Charlottesville, chances are you're still without electricity at this time. But Tiantec is actively working on restoring electricity in the area between Richmond and Hermitage. In the Corland to Scarborough area, including Prospect and Bethel, most of that area has been restored. There are a few pockets in some areas like Lekoto and Blackrock and Annosvale that are without electricity at this time. However, Tiantec is working all around these areas, trying to restore electricity before nightfall. In some instances, electricity will be returned after dusk this evening. But bear in mind that Tiantec staged or placed valuable equipment in strategic locations so that they could respond quickly. And that's why they were able to ensure that we restore the electricity. Please also bear in mind that TSTT is currently doing their own reconnaissance, so they are actively driving around the island as we speak. That is TSTT. They already drove all the way around up to Charlottesville, and they are making their way around Lansome and coming out down the north coast. So TSTT is systematically ensuring that all of their lines are up and working. Where the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development is concerned, we wish to say a big thank you. In this urban area, they cleared Shervan Road, they cleared the highway, they cleared Annos Vale. In Blackrock and Dunvegan, they are waiting Tiantec because power lines are intermingled with the trees in that area. And so the clearance they will happen once Tiantec completes the removal of their lines, and they are currently working in Patience Hill. In Mason Hall and environs, the Division of Infrastructure cleared Providence Road. They cleared a tree on top of a house in Lake Oto, Sea View in Golden Lane, Kokowati. They're doing some work in Kokowati, and they are on their way to Englishman's Bay in Palo Tuvier. In the Roxburgh district, the main road remain cleared. The rivers and waterways in Roxburgh district is at 20%, so there isn't a threat to flood along Renaissance or the hospital. The team is heading through the link road from Roxburgh to Bloody Bay, and so they are systematically ensuring that that roadway remains clear. In the Roxburgh district, they cleared at Turpin Bend Corner, they cleared at Dr. River area. There's a team currently at Flagstaff doing some clearing, and they are currently mobilizing lighting towers for all sites around the island so that the Division of Infrastructure will work throughout the night. And so also that's noteworthy, in areas that had power outages or still have power outages, water distribution may be a challenge, because even if there was generator access to the power plants, those will run out shortly. So water distribution in some areas will be dependent on electricity returning to those areas. This is of importance. So all medical services on island return to normal tomorrow. Work for all Tobago House of Assembly employees return to normal tomorrow. So we expect to see you bright and early at 8 a.m. in the morning. And let me just preface that by saying that should you show up to work and you meet a little disturbance in and around your work environment, a little splatter of water here or there, or a little debris here or there, please assist by just wiping it up and getting on with the work, because we are a productive people in Tobago. So we return to work tomorrow. School will be reopened tomorrow. Save and except for Ebenezer Methodist that had part of its roof blown off during the course of this event. And so of course we expect Ebenezer Methodist to be out and challenged significantly. PTSC will return to normal service tomorrow. So public transport will return to normal around the island tomorrow. Here at the Tobago Emergency Operations Center, we will move to partial activation. What that means is that the staff here, the volunteers that are assigned here, and the short-term employees here will continue to work round the clock. while other stakeholders are allowed to demobilize and leave, but they will continue to take your reports, because we expect that some folks didn't make a report during the event, some folks wait till last minute, some folks attempted to fix the problem themselves, and then when they figured out that they could not fix the problem themselves, they are now reporting it to TEMA. So we expect reports to keep rolling in. As I said, we are at 102 and counting, and so we will be here to collect those reports. Almost immediately, we are going on a repair roof drive, and with the repair roof drive, we are ably assisted by the Division of Infrastructure and the labor from the Defense Force that is assisting us. So we have been collecting getting the nails, the screws, the galvanize, the rigging, the rafters, and with the help of the Defense Force, we are going around the island and repairing the roofs. That will continue unabated until we are able to fix all the roofs that have been damaged throughout this weather event. So please don't report your old roof that wasn't good all the time or that wasn't damaged by this system, but we are working with the roofs that were damaged by this system, right, as a matter of priority. For the others, there is an active program at the Division of Settlement that you can tap into, and the Division of Settlement, along with Habitat for Humanity, they have been moving quite quickly in repairing roofs around the island. But for those damaged during this exercise and that reported through TEMA, we are utilizing the services of the Defense Force that we actually have on island with us at this moment to assist us in repairing those roofs. And finally, I want to say a big thank you. I want to say express some thanks to the stakeholders we had in the room. TRHA, Dr. Mitchell and team from Community Health who were present. We had all the public utilities represented here. We had the TTPS, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, through the Chief of Defense Staff, Daniel. We want to thank you. We want to also thank all the volunteers, some CERT 1000 that came out. We wish to thank the public servants, in particular the Chief Administrator, the Administrator from the Division of Infrastructure, the Administrator from the Division of Community Development, the Administrator from the Division of Education, the Administrator from the Division of Tourism, and all those other administrators that were in and around and involved in the work that we did during the course of this weather event. I also wish to thank the Executive Council for speedy decision making. I wish to thank area representatives for the work that they have done across the board. I wish to also pay homage to the workers here at TEMA. As per usual, you are like busy bees. I wouldn't normally the beehive operates around a queen bee, but they operate around a king bee here. So they are like busy bees getting the work done and ensuring that we keep this hive called Tobago well oiled and working. So thank you all. I wish to express gratitude as well to the Ministry of National Security and the Minister of National Security who called and who also was part of our conversations, and of course ODPM that is under the Ministry of National Security. I wish to thank the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Development and and Minister Alwari who was also part and parcel of our conversations here. I wish to also thank the Met Services, the National Met Services, and Mrs. Decoto and what's Travis' surname? Gardner, Mr. Gardner, who continuously worked with us, and all the other stakeholders. Thank you very much. This is how we manage natural disasters, and again, Above all, we say thanks to God for answering our prayers. And we pray, God, that He answers the prayers of our Grenadian and Vincentian families who at this time facing this direct threat. So we'll take the questions from members of the media at this time. Thank you very much.
Hi, Aisha, Tobago Channel 5. Is there concern moving forward that based on the level of the event versus the response that citizens will become apathetic to information being put out by the various teams?
That is a concern. As a matter of fact, I think citizens were already apathetic because the last time we were hit majorly by a hurricane close to this magnitude would be 1963. We escaped Hurricane Ivan to a large degree, and our families in Grenada were badly hit. We were skirted by Emily and others, and I feel as though Tobagonians don't appreciate how blessed they are, and even in the blessing, I feel at times we don't appreciate the need to be vigilant once we see a natural disaster on the horizon. And from my observation, the village of Delaford took this much more seriously than anywhere else. I visited and just before midnight, or just up until midnight, I visited all of the shelters starting at Collar Hall, traversing northward up to Lansome, and around to Speyside, and coming down on the eastern coast back to Fairfield Complex. And in many of the shelters, no one was there. People just weren't there, weren't present. In Charleville, people were just sliming because they were kind of vexed. The police shut down their fishermen. But when I got to Delaford, before a single raindrop, had 27 people resident at the shelter. In fact, when I pushed the door to Delaford, thinking no one was in the community center because the center was dark, and I was pretty loud in entering, only to realize I was waking up people who were already wrapped up in blankets in Delaford. But you have to understand, Delaford in 2004 experienced 3 deaths from landslides and from flood-related deaths. They knew what it means to lose the entire property from flood. So they didn't play for slips at all. As a matter of fact, the center manager at Delaford reported that the first person that walked into the shelter was a lady whose home got destroyed down in Kings Bay during the 2004 flood. And so for that lady, she was just not staying in any place that she think will be a threat. And perhaps the absence of us experiencing anything major in recent times has caused apathy. But I would like to believe it's always best to err on the side of caution. I would like to believe it's always best to prepare for the worst. I would like to believe it's always best to be advised by the science of the thing and the data of the thing, and to pray that God's miraculous hand cover us. Who knows? And more than that, I explained, and the Met officer explained, that those territories that will be in the northern part of the hurricane will experience stronger winds and a stronger impact from the hurricane. And because the hurricane moved slightly north, Tobago ended up in the southern part of the hurricane as opposed to the northern part of the hurricane. And it's amazing what a few degrees north means in terms of protecting Tobago. And I also want to make the point that we may just be taken for granted, that we may have better than normal, better than average public and private infrastructure on the island. This is not 1963. I think most of our homes now are better built than they were in 1963. Most of our homes now may not be built of of flimsy wooden structures. You know, our road infrastructure might be better constructed now because we have access to technology than 1963. The THA over the last 3 years have spent billions on retaining walls and all of those things. So I would like to think that in addition to the blessings of God, we have much better infrastructure today than 1963, and that might actually account for some of the preservation that we have. So I would just like to appeal to Tobagonians that whenever there is a warning, that you heed it, and it does not have to reach to category 4 status for us to really pay attention. And I hope we don't get to the place of apathy. I saw one person online say that God was a Trini, but he moved to Tobago. Right? I mean, plenty of Trinis has moved to Tobago. The quality of life here is better. So if God moves here from Trinidad, that's understandable. But I don't want us to be jocular about how blessed we are and take for granted the human response that is required.
On the heels of Hurricane BERYL, we have a weather system, I think it's AL 96, that is expected to give us some weather coming this week. What kind of preparation is going to be in place for that, especially after BERYL and the water that we had?
Well, that's why we are having a partial activation here, because we expect if another weather system is coming with a whole lot more rains, then we had a set of rains from the trough that occurred previously. So it's essentially 3 back-to-back systems we're dealing with, that landslides become more prevalent, more possible rather. So we are preparing for that. The IQUD remains on high alert and TEMA remains on high alert.
And my final question, did anything happen with the vessel at Cove? Any movement?
I'm glad you asked, because I had it in my notes and I forgot to mention it. And we do have some video footage, I believe, that we can share, because we did a reconnaissance at the vessel, and the reconnaissance at the vessel showed that the vessel did not move significantly, as it did not move out of place. The bobbing up and down of the vessel, of course, that happens on a normal day with rough seas, and so that happened in this instance. TNT Salvage more or less had removed all of the oil material from inside the vessel, and what they did not remove, I guess, had leaked out and went its way. And so from the reconnaissance we did today, and we are showing you footage that is perhaps about 30 minutes old, we have not seen any leakages, nor did the vessel move from its location. So we are very happy for that. And even while we are having this conference, the team is up at Stolly Park. That footage is not available yet. At Stolly Park, looking at the cells where we have been storing the oily waste, to ensure that those cells have not overflowed their banks, so to speak, or the walls of their cells, and that though that oily waste is still contained, right? Because we have been lamenting the fact that we have not seen the funding yet to treat with the disposal of the waste from Stolly Park. So we are monitoring that, and a team is there at the moment monitoring that, because we have in fact had significant rainfall. And when we in fact have that data, then we will provide it to the public, so that the public will be aware as to any threats if those threats are imminent.
Just wanted to be clear in a follow-up question. The reason for the limited precipitation is because the hurricane moved slightly north and we got the southern bands, or was there some other reason for the limited precipitation in Tobago?
Well, I don't know if the precipitation was that limited, to be honest with you, because the levels of precipitation we had is above what we will have on a normal day of rainfall. But yes, in large, because of the slight movement of the system a bit northward, it allowed for Tobago to be spared a lot of the weather systems associated with that. But we did in fact have some strong winds. We did see one or two fisher folk in some challenges. And I should add that when I spoke with Mrs. Decoteau a short while ago, she pointed out by 8 p.m. tonight, we should see calmer seas, and so the fisher folk should be able to return to their trade tomorrow, bearing in mind that we will have some gusts of winds that will come tomorrow and the hours thereafter.
Mr. Chief Secretary, any cost factor at this time?
The question being asked by Elizabeth Williams is the question of cost factor. We do not have a cost factor at this time because, as you will well imagine, we just have the raw reports, and that cost factor, perhaps closer to the end of the week, we could have some rough calculations done as to the cost factor.
Maybe I could expand on that by informing it is standard operating procedures that immediately after this we had discussions with the engineering folks at the IQUD and also the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service along with CIT. They have started what you call rapid damage assessment. That will move to a point where we'll do detailed damage assessment by way of engineers visiting some of these confirmed properties that have been damaged and do a cost analysis, and that will influence what happens going forward in terms of to be able to answer your question precisely whether or not that there is the cost and what the cost is of damages.
All right, so thank you very much. Again, I wish to thank everyone who participated in this exercise, and I'll say one more thing. Well, two more things. One, we're thanking, of course, those who prayed and the Most High God. Two, every time we have these incidents and we activate like this, and we are able to come away happy that we did not suffer extreme damages, I want you to see this as dress rehearsal. And I'm very serious about that. See this as dress rehearsal. There will come a day when we may not be spared as we were over the last 48 hours. There may come a day, and it may not be a hurricane. It might be an earthquake of significant magnitude. It might be floods. It might be rainfalls more than we can handle. But I'm just saying, every time these incidents come around, it is our duty to operate with a high level of professionalism, to operate to the fullest extent to ensure that we minimize loss of life or limb and that we protect property as much as possible. But see this as dress rehearsal. We do not know when the day will come when we may not be as spared. For now, we walk away happy and thankful to the Most High that we don't have major damages, and we pray for our Caribbean neighbors. I see all the way up to Jamaica, they have begun preparing, and we don't know what BERYL will do as she plummets to the Caribbean. But remember, this is an overactive hurricane season. It's an opportunity for you to ensure you have your batteries, your torchlights. Please take the batteries out of the torchlight. Don't allow the batteries to go bad in the torchlight. Store your canned foods, store your documents well. Ensure you have water put aside. If your roof survived this and you know your roof had some problems, now is a good time to buy the flash band to nail down what needs to be nailed down. Please do what you must to prepare for the next weather event. We have an overactive Atlantic storm period, and I figure that we will see each other very often here at Fairfield Complex. We will be here very, very often, members of the media. So save the block beds and so on. Members of the media, so you the block beds, save them. Don't throw them away. Don't puncture them. Clean it off nicely, because I suspect we will have repeats of these press conferences. So thank you all very much. God bless you all. We return as normal, and with this I could say that Tobago is no longer in an emergency mode. We are no longer in an emergency mode. We return to all government and private operations as per normal. Thank you very much. Schools are reopened tomorrow. That was also noted. So thank you all very much, and God's richest blessings.